start of the meeting, I am joined by members of the committee, Councillor Greenberg from Ward 1, Councillor Lucas from Ward 2, Councillor Wright from Ward 3, Councillor Block from Ward 4, Councillor Bixby from Ward 6, is Councillor LeBoeuf here yet?
No, he's not.
Okay, Councillor Downs, Vice Chair of the committee from Ward 5, and myself from Ward 7. Did I miss any counselors from who are not on the committee who are with us tonight? I don't think so.
Council Block just joined.
Did I
Councillor Wright?
introduce you, Councillor Block from Ward 4? I thought I did, but I apologize if I didn't. So I think that makes 7 members of the committee present. And we've got 3 items before us. 2 of them are appeals of traffic council decisions. Just at the outset, I want to let everybody know that when we take these up, we're going to hear from the administration first, describing what took place in traffic council. We'll have an opportunity for counselors to ask questions, and then I will briefly open it up to members of the public who want to comment. Want to ask everybody to try to keep their comments to 2 minutes or less if possible. If you have more to say, I will try to use some discretion and letting people go a little longer, but would like to try to keep a handle on the timing of the meeting. We've been joined by Councillor LeBoeuf from Ward 8, so we have all 8 councillors of the committee right now. So we're going to start with item 30-24, Appeal of Traffic Council Decision TC 35-23. Mr. Kozis, can I turn this over to you, please, to introduce this item and the actions of Traffic Council, please?
Yes. Good evening. For those of you who have not met me yet, I'm David Kozis. I'm the transportation coordinator in the Public Works Department, and I'm the chair of the Traffic Council. So if I could share, let me see if I could share my screen. Okay. And let me just start the show. Okay. So our first item was 3024, right? The appeal of the council decision. Okay. All right. So I have several slides I want to go through first. Many of these slides have been seen before, and I'll go through this all. So this is the location that we'll be discussing tonight. This is Farwell. It hits North Street 2 points. It begins here and then extends, and then a sharp curve and ends at North Street again. I have several photos that I can show. This is the first one. Let me just close this so I can see my screen. Okay. So this is a view of Farwell, very close to North Street. It's looking south toward North Street. It's only 20 feet wide at this point. And then a little bit further north on Farwell Street, also looking south toward Joseph Road, you can see in this slide, the roadway becomes a little bit wider. It's about 22 feet at this point, and parking is allowed right now on both sides of the street, in this section as well as this section. And then turning around and looking north, this would be the view. So this is looking north from Joseph Road. And then once you go around the curve and look back, this is looking east toward Farwell Circle, which is straight ahead of you. And then if you go around the curve, you'll get back down to North Street. This would be the view. And it's about 22 feet at this point. So, all right. The existing regulations along the street, we only have one existing parking regulation. It's the area shown in red on this map. Just in the middle on the west side is the only place where there's currently a parking restriction on the street near the apartments. So the reason this came about is the Transportation Division heard a request. It originally came in anonymously, just to restrict a request to restrict parking on Farwell Street. They forwarded us a video of one of the school buses that was unable to get through because parking was occurring on both sides. So the recommendation from Traffic Council at the time was to begin the no parking zone at this point, and I'll show you on the map in the next slide, and extending all the way around the corner down to North Street. So this is the Traffic Council recommendation the first time that we heard it. So here's the existing parking restriction, and Traffic Council recommended and voted to extend the parking restriction from where it's currently restricted to the north around the curve, the area shown in blue, and to the south down to North Street in this area shown in orange. And this is just the technical language that we voted on that would need to be changed in our traffic and parking regulations to make this restriction legal. So that vote happened back in July at Traffic Council. Then it was appealed and taken to PS&T back in September. This was a video that was taken for that meeting that shows where the bus, the school bus that goes through this first block of Farwell and then takes a turn onto Joseph Road. Okay. So here's the chronology of events. So first, the item went to Traffic Council back in July. Traffic Council voted to restrict the parking on the west side and around the curve. It was appealed. It came to PS&T in September of 2023. After a long discussion at PS&T, this committee voted to remand the item back to Traffic Council for further review. So it came back to Traffic Council. We did some additional data collection, which I can show you on the next 3 slides. We heard the item in October, on October 26th, with the additional information, and we voted again at that meeting, the same recommendation to restrict parking along the west side and along the curve. After that, the item was appealed again. The focus of this appeal is, we believe, the first block of Farwell, and that brings us to today. So here's some additional information that was prepared for the October 26th Traffic Council meeting. Here's the area where we currently have no parking on the west side in the middle of the block. We wanted to see how many parking spaces could fit on each side. So that's what this slide shows. So for the first block, we calculated that there's space for about 4 vehicles on the east side and about 3 vehicles on the west side. And then along the remainder, we calculated that there's space for about 24 vehicles on the east side, and the north side, the area shown in green and blue on this slide, and about space for 33 vehicles on the west side and the south side. So more vehicles could fit on the west side, but remember, that's where our utility poles are, where we could use the utility poles to post the no parking signs. And it already includes the area that's already no parking. So in that 33, in that 33 total of 33 vehicles. So we did receive input from the Newton Public Schools. The transportation director did confirm that the bus picks up students on North Street just before Farwell Street, and it needs to turn around at that point. So it just goes up Farwell, makes the quick right turn onto Joseph Road, another right turn on Albemarle to get back onto North Street. She did support restricting parking on one side or the other. From the Newton Fire Department, we have a video that we could show you. This is a video that we took back in October that shows this. This is the first block of Farwell Street. This engine is the thinnest engine that they have. And it just shows what happens when you have pretty small cars parked on both sides of this first block. So in our test run, you could see that the fire engine, even the thinnest one, could not get through in ideal conditions with small vehicles and no snow on the street. So it's pretty clear that it's not safe to have parking on both sides. We took another video the next block up where it's a little bit wider. Remember, this is where it's 22 feet wide. So this video shows, again, ideal conditions and small vehicles parked right next to the curb that the fire truck can get through, but it must slow down significantly at that point. Okay. So this, again, is Traffic Council's preferred option. We know that we need to restrict parking on one side for safety. We know that there is more parking available on the west side, but we did vote to restrict parking on the west side because of the utility poles that are there. We don't, if we restricted parking on the other side, we don't have utility poles. We need to be putting in new poles into the ground. So this is for aesthetics. And again, parking is already restricted along a portion of this section. So this was Traffic Council's vote again on October 26th. So our understanding of this appeal is really just for this first short block between North Street and Joseph. Again, Traffic Council voted to restrict parking on the west side. And we think that this appeal, it's the residents that want to allow parking on the west side of this short block and restrict it on the other side. So I just wanted to go through some reasons for voting to restrict parking on the west side, that the reason the Traffic Council voted in this way. First of all, lack of sidewalks on the west side. There are some sidewalks, but there's this stretch with no sidewalks on the west side. We do have sidewalks on the east side where we would think people could park and then safely get out of their car and be on the sidewalk. Also, we have seen that cars park here in the grass off the curb, and maybe that's a reason that this item was appealed, but this is not a legal parking space. A car that parks in this space could receive a parking ticket. It's actually a zoning violation as well. This would be illegal additional parking in the front setback. So really, cars should not be parking here anyway. Also, if we do restrict parking on the west side, again, we could use the existing utility poles to post the signs. We don't have utility poles on the other side. And just for consistency, to allow, parking on one whole side and to restrict it on the other side. So that's Traffic Council's recommendation. That's how we voted on July 13th and October 26th as well. It continues to be our recommendation to restrict parking as shown in the red on this slide. And to be able to post the no parking signs on the utility poles would look something like this photo. I think that's my last slide. Yeah. So that's the presentation. Do you want me, Councilor Grossman, to stop sharing, or maybe?
Why don't you leave it up a second? What I want to do is just give a minute for committee members to ask questions, and then I want to turn it over to the appellant and see who else wants to contribute from there. Counselor Wright, I see your hand first. And for everyone who's participating, if you could please raise your virtual hand if you want to be recognized, that would help me out a lot. Counselor Wright, go ahead, please.
What's the minimum width that you need for the fire truck to go through?
Well, it fits through barely at 22 feet. You saw that when it was 20 feet and with small cars parked on both sides, it didn't fit. Of course, these are small cars. If there's snow or if the cars aren't parked exactly against the curb, it wouldn't, or a bigger fire truck wouldn't be able to get through it, if there's 22 feet in width.
Okay. And you don't know why they are specifically appealing this section, do you?
Well, I guess we can ask them, but I'm guessing it's to be able to park in this manner as shown in this slide.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Counselor Greenberg.
Oh, thank you, Chair. Mr. Kostas, how many cars would that stretch that wants to be appealed, that wants to park there? How many? It doesn't look like there could be many cars parked there anyway because of the driveways and
Well,
the
that was
curbs.
this slide, right? So I think if this is all that's really being appealed, it's this short block right here between North Street and Joseph. So when I went and took a look on, the side that we are recommending parking be allowed, 4 vehicles would be able to fit there, about 4 vehicles. On the other side, 3 vehicles. So pretty similar.
Oh, okay. Okay, thank you.
Counselor Lucas.
Thank you. Well, can you go back, please?
This one?
Yeah, that's helpful. So you have all these parking numbers for Falwell Street. I'm just wondering, are there any other parking prohibitions in this neighborhood? Particularly, I'm thinking about, Anthony Road, Falwell Circle, Joseph Road.
Joseph Road, you can park on both sides. It's pretty narrow as well. That has not come before Traffic Council at this point. So I'm familiar with that one, right?
Oh, and Anthony Road, Anthony Circle, are there any other parking prohibitions?
I didn't look at that.
Okay. Okay. All right. Thanks. I'm all set for now.
Okay, Counselor Lipoff.
Yes. Look, I have no questions. I just have support for the Traffic Council, who twice have had a unanimous decision on this, and it seems absolutely reasonable to me for overall public safety instead of the individual desires of the homeowners on this street. I am looking forward to hearing to what the appellant has to say as to why we should not be doing this.
Thank you. And I did realize, hearing the questions, that I should have gone to the appellant first and then to counselor. So I apologize for not thinking that through. But let me turn to our appellant, and forgive me if I mispronounce your name. Is it Mr. Peccioni?
Yes, correct.
Okay, so let me hand it over to you, and if you could explain your basis for the appeal, and then once you're done, if there are other members of the community who would like to be recognized, if you could each please raise your hand. And as I said, Mr. Peccioni, take your time explaining what you want to explain. Others, if you could try to keep your comments as close to 2 minutes as possible, that would be very much appreciated. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, sure. So my name is Dimitri Piccioni. So I'm the owner of 99 North Street. So we lived at that area for many years. So currently I live in another location and I rent out that apartment. So I think first of all we did know that this off-road parking is completely illegal. So we did this for many years. We never got any citation, and nobody told us that that's illegal. And from our experience, usually people who live at the block park cars on that side of the street, on the west side of Harwell Street. They park off road, usually it's actually done in a bit different way than what we see in the picture. So usually about half of the car is on the street, half of the car is off-road. But we can see here from this picture, the cars park off-road on the west side. They take less space from Farwell Street than if they park on the east side. Since on the east side we have here sidewalk, so we can park off-road, and the car takes much more space. When submitting this appeal, that if cars park off-road on the west side, they take much less space from Farwell Street than when they park on the east side. If you want to create as much space as possible in this Farwell Street on this block, it will be more efficient to prohibit parking on east side than on the west side. Just because of that reason. Some additional considerations we might have is that if a school bus goes from North Street and then turns right, then again right, then it will be more convenient for bus driver when the cars don't park on the right side than if the car don't park on the left side. Yeah, so that's those were my considerations when submitting this appeal. So I don't have anything else to add. We don't hear you.
Mr. Peccioni, is it accurate that you're primarily concerned with the small stretch of street as Mr. Kosis identified, or are you concerned with the whole stretch of the street?
Yeah, I'm only concerned with that small stretch of from 97 to 99 north. Yeah. Okay,
so it is in fact the part pictured here that Mr. Kosis identified?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, anything further? I didn't mean to interrupt you. Please feel
free.
No,
so I don't have any additional comments.
Okay, if you want to be heard again, just raise your virtual hand and I'm happy to come back to you. Okay, Ms. Pitter. Welcome. It's nice to have you. It's nice to have you back in one of our meetings again.
Well, unfortunately, I missed all the prior conversation, but I'm happy to be able to join finally today. I'm actually the owner of 120 Farwell, as well as the owner at 39 Joseph Road. I've been living in this community since 1991. The streets are definitely too narrow, and I do believe that I'm in agreement that it should be restricted. And the one thing I would say though, on this very end, the 97, 99, by having parking on that east side, when that bus makes the turn, and especially if it's a snow situation, if there's cars or anything there, it's going to be a distraction, and they're going to end up moving all the way around them if there's any cars parked there on that right side when they're making the right turn. So I think actually, I also did not know it was illegal to park on the west side, because again, it's been like that since I've been living there. Since 91, folks have been parking right there. But when that bus makes that turn, they're going to want to turn right and basically stay to the right of the road, since it is a two-way street. If there's a car parked there on the east side, they're going to end up now bearing on the oncoming side to go around them, because as you stated, it's very narrow there. There is parking. Councilor Lucas asked about parking on Joseph Road and Anthony Circle. And Joseph Road actually is wider, much wider than Farwell. And Anthony Road is not, but there are no prohibited, I can't even say it. There is no restrictions on either one of those roads.
So just so I understand, are you and Mr. Peccioni in agreement on what you're asking? Are you looking to switch the restriction?
Yep.
So that parking is permitted on the west side, but not on the east side?
Or neither side. So yeah.
Or neither side.
or neither side, right? At that very end of the street, yeah.
And Mr. Peccioni, are you in agreement, excuse me, in agreement with that as well? Would you be satisfied if there was no parking on either side in this end section of the street?
So second, I'm not in agreement with no parking on either side. But it is completely prohibited to do off-road parking on the west side. Then we have no choice. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you both. I see another hand, and again, forgive me if I mispronounce your name. Is it Mr. Ajerski?
Hi, sorry, can you hear me? It's Mr. Ugursky.
Yes. Oh, and actually, I forgot to ask everyone, when you introduce yourself, if you could please state your address.
Oh, yes, perfect. So yeah, I'm the current resident of 99 North Street. So I'm the resident for Mr. Peccioni. Wanted to dial in, not to incriminate the owner of that vehicle, but that is a spot that we tend to park at as residents, just because of the availability of space, specifically on this stretch of Farwell that we've described to the west side. I know that Mr. Wang, who also has his hand raised, is going to probably mention the same thing for his vehicle. Given that we have two drivers, it's challenging with that little bit of stretch to have any other form of parking. I was not tracking that parking as it's currently set up would be an issue. I figure most of the time it's off the road itself and out of the way, and isn't factoring into that limited narrow space that the councilman had brought up.
Okay, so just so I understand, I understand you're saying that people typically park there. I think we've all heard that it's not legal. Are you weighing in one way or another about what your feelings on traffic council's recommendation are, or what your neighbors have to say about it?
Yeah, sorry, I weighing in that would very much also agree with Mr. Peccioni on at least that limited stretch of the west side of Farwell being exempt in this case from the parking restriction.
Okay. Understanding that that would mean that it is still illegal to park as pictured in that photo.
Yes, understanding that.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Mr. Wang.
Hi, my name is William Wang. I live in 129 Farwell Street, just a little bit further down the road to the left on the west side of this picture. So one thing I've been noticing is that if there are trucks parked on the east side to the right in this photo, it makes it very difficult for us to get out of our driveway. So I would like to be in agreement with some of the folks that said before, restrict parking on the right side or on the east side instead of the west.
Okay, thank you. Do we have other members of the public who would like to speak? Okay, I don't see any other hands. And Mr. Wang, if I could just ask you to put your hand down so that I can keep track of everybody who wants to speak in the right order. Councillor Wright, let me come to you.
So I visited here today, this area, and I think we should limit parking on that west side, because if the cars, and per what people wrote in, if they pull up onto the lawn or the grass, there is a sidewalk, you can see it a little bit, that pole farther down, but then the sidewalk disappears. So if someone's walking down along there, and if people are parked there, then they're going to need to go into the street. And the other concern I would have, if you allow parking on that side of the street, when you get up to North Street, this is not a perpendicular. And if someone's parked right near the corner, it would be hard to see the cars if you're trying to make a left, and cars can go kind of fast in that area. So I think from a safety perspective, I think it would be safer to keep the no parking on that side and allow parking on the east side of the street.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Downs.
Thank you. I'm going to agree with my colleague from Ward 3. I think she put that very well. It's going to be a tough corner there. If you allow parking there and people are not parking on the lawn. This is a lot that has 2 frontages. I could see a special permit to allow parking on one of the 2 setbacks. Because it's going to be hard to find a setback that isn't a front setback. But that doesn't, relate to what we're doing here. What we're doing here is trying to make the street safe enough for a fire truck and a school bus to go down in most conditions, including in the winter when we might have some snow, some winters. And I wanted to remind my colleagues, because you may not all know this, that Traffic Council has a counselor, a member of this committee who sits on Traffic Council. I was there for this vote, but the other members of the Traffic Council, besides Mr. Kozis, are Sergeant Wade or a representative of the police department, Mr. Prezant, or a member of an engineer from the transportation division, a citizen representative, usually Mitch Fishman, but we do have an alternate. And it's, I spend most of Traffic Council agreeing with the professionals on the council who are bringing their tool sets and their expertise to bear on this. We did vote twice unanimously for this, and I think for the very solid reason that it was just the street is just too narrow to have parking on both sides. And it's a lot faster and easier to put the no parking signs on the west side also when you already have a pole there, than it is to wait for spring to put it up on the east side. So I would go with the Traffic Council. Thanks.
Councillor Lucas.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We saw this petition last fall, and we referred it back to committee. And I believe one of the things that I said when we referred this back to committee was that the Traffic Council work with the neighbors just so that we wouldn't have another appeal. And here we are, we have another appeal. It looks like Traffic Council kept the same recommendation to restrict parking on the west side and around the corner there in the back of our screen there. So it's being appealed, and that is the neighbor's right. But just question, what is before us? Is it appeal, uphold? Because one of the neighbors mentioned that we should also restrict parking on the east side, but I don't think that's our responsibility right now to vote on, correct?
Ms. Delaney and Councillor Downs and Mr. Kozis, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think our options here are we can uphold the Traffic Council decision. We can approve the
Reject it.
appeal, which would be rejecting the Traffic Council decision. We can remand to Traffic Council, and Councillor Downs, this is the part where I need your expertise. Could we amend as we see fit? I think yes.
We could. We haven't done that very often, in part because it's rather nice to get the expertise of Traffic Council members on this kind of decision rather than our doing it because it feels nice.
Okay, thank you, Chair Grossman and Councillor Downs. So I don't believe we should take any other additional action, meaning restrict parking on the east side, the right side of our screen there. So it's just uphold Traffic Council, deny the Traffic Council decision, or I think you said remand back to Traffic Council. So I am for upholding the traffic council decision. We should not have parking on the west side of the roadway, which is the left side of the screen. And that will make it easier, much easier for school buses and fire trucks to get by. That's where I'm at. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Kozis.
Thank you, Chair Grossman. One thing that I forgot to mention before, so we've established that this car, the way it's parked here in this photo, is not parked legally, and it's a zoning violation. So maybe it would be helpful to know that even if the car was parked partially on the road, let's say there's 2 tires on the road and 2 tires on the grass, that still would not be parked legally. It could still receive a parking ticket. You are required to have all 4 tires on the roadway, or else a ticket could be issued, and it would still be a zoning violation of parking in the front setback. The car would need to be completely parked on the roadway, even though there's no curb here. So I thought I would just mention that. Thank you.
Thanks. Mr. Kozis, could you also just comment on some of the neighbors' concerns about the east versus the west side and some of the movement of vehicles from the other direction and oncoming traffic? We heard a couple comments along those lines, and I think it would be helpful to hear your reaction.
Yeah. Well, don't forget that right now parking is allowed on both sides, right? So cars could park right here currently, and sometimes they do. Not that often. If we restrict parking on this side, yes, it's true the vehicles would need to go around the parked vehicles. We could restrict parking administratively without any traffic council approval up to 50 feet from the intersection. So a portion of this area could administratively, if the traffic, it's based on engineering judgment. So our traffic engineers could take a look, see if they feel the need to restrict parking along the east side, the beginning of the east side. That could be done administratively, or another item can be docketed in the future if we find that it's still an issue. But, I think the main thing was to allow access for the fire trucks and the school buses, and this should do it.
Thank you. Ms. Pitter?
Yeah, so the one thing that wasn't also mentioned is that there's parking on North Street. There's no restrictions on North Street, and you can park all day long on either side, and it's a very wide street. And then so the house that's on the corner on the west side, the front of the house faces North Street. And the other part about not parking on the west side is, remember, all of the apartment buildings, that's the access point where all of the apartment buildings, I think it's like 3 different driveways where those cars are coming in and out. So you don't really want parking on the west side because you're going to be blocking the driveway, the visual for those drivers that are coming out of the apartment buildings from North Street.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any other comments, or do we have a motion from one of the committee members on this item?
I will move denial of the appeal.
Okay, so Councilor Downs has moved denial of the appeal, which would uphold the decision of traffic council. Is there any discussion on Councilor Downs' motion? Okay, seeing none, if I could do this on a voice vote. All those in favor of Councilor Downs' motion, which would deny the appeal and uphold the decision of traffic council, please say aye.
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 Do we have any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, so the decision of traffic council is upheld and the appeal is denied. I want to thank everybody for coming and for their participation tonight. As assuming this goes through the full council as it was voted tonight, if as this plays out over time, folks are finding difficulty with it, of course, be in touch with Mr. Kozis and his team, and there's always further action that can be taken down the line. We are going to move on to our next item this evening, which is 29-24, Appeal of Traffic Council Decision TC 57-23. Mr. Kozis, if I could ask you to introduce this, please.
Yes, thank you. So for this item, I actually only have maybe one or two slides. So this is a request to restrict access to Center Street to all vehicles except bicycles. Okay, so this is the location that we are talking about on Center Street. We have Walnut Street coming down from the Highlands, Center Street, and you see the Route 9 ramps behind. So this traffic council item would restrict access to this piece of Center Street to all vehicles except bicycles. It would look like this. All vehicles would not be able to turn right onto Center Street from Walnut Street or continue through. All the vehicles would need to take a left or a right when they get to this location, only bicycles. So that was what was being proposed. Traffic Council denied this request. We believe it is inappropriate and would be extremely impactful to circulation in the area. So we voted, that was the vote back in November, to deny this item. It was appealed. It was appealed correctly based on our city ordinances. I do have this note that perhaps this was docketed due to ongoing construction on Center Street, Winchester Street, and Needham Street. The signals at the Route 9 ramps, that is work that's continuing. The circulation in the area of Center Street, Winchester Street, and Route 9 is continuing. But that was our traffic council vote to deny the request to limit access to all vehicles except bicycles.
Thank you very much. We had an appeal by Mr. Corey. If I could ask you to introduce yourself, state your address, and your reason for the appeal, please.
Good evening. My name is Jesse Corey. I live at 64 Oak Cliff Road in Newton. I am both the original petitioner and appellant for this item. I want to say thank you to the Public Safety and Transportation Committee for addressing this issue tonight. I do not live in the neighborhood, but I commonly commute through this neighborhood because I have a job at a business on Needham Street, which I just started back in September. As you all know, this is a request to restrict access to Center Street southbound, technically southwesterly from Walnut Street, for all vehicles except for bicycles. In case there is any confusion, I am not suggesting the block of Center Street between Route 9 and Walnut Street be changed to a one-way street, nor am I suggesting this block be changed to a bicycle-only street. Northeasterly traffic on this block of Center Street would not be affected at all by this change. In addition, or in fact, northeasterly traffic has no alternative route because the alternative route for southwesterly traffic includes one-way streets. Despite having a do not enter sign to restrict vehicles entering this block of Center Street going southwesterly, this block of Center Street would remain a two-way street. This means that every time a resident who lives on this block of Center Street is returning to their house, they will only have access to their driveways coming from the Route 9 side. However, when residents leave their home, they would be permitted to turn either direction. Vehicles approaching southbound down Walnut Street would no longer be allowed to turn right. Vehicles approaching northbound up Walnut Street would no longer be allowed to turn left, and vehicles approaching southwest on Center Street would no longer be allowed to go straight. In October 2023, I filed the original petition for Traffic Council's consideration because I am disappointed about the fact that the newly installed traffic signal at Center Street and Route 9 ramps intersection are causing traffic queues going southwest on Center Street to back up beyond Walnut Street. It is not a good thing when queues for one specific traffic light controlled intersection commonly back up beyond the previous traffic light. The Traffic Council discussed this request during their meeting on November 16, 2023, and voted unanimously to deny my request because of the large amounts of traffic that this change would impact. I specifically requested a trial when I filed the original request for Traffic Council's consideration because I knew how impactful this change would be. I filed the appeal less than a week following the November 16, 2023 denial because I am unhappy about my request being denied. I am unhappy about this vote because of the traffic congestion issues. I have been communicating via email with the city's traffic engineer regarding this issue over the past several months. I have been informed many times that MassDOT is continuing to make adjustment to signal timings and sequencing at their new signal at Center Street and Route 9 ramps. However, I don't think that this will solve the problem that I'm trying to solve, because I don't think that MassDOT is touching the city's Center Street at Walnut Street signal, since it's not owned by MassDOT, and because it's outside the project limits, and because it doesn't operate on the same controller as their new signal. I also want to discuss that there are traffic congestion issues commonly coming up on the Newton Highlands neighborhood group on Facebook. Some residents have suggested through comments on posts about painting a "do not block the intersection" pavement marking within the Center Street at Walnut Street intersection. I wish I could support that suggestion, but I am not willing to support that suggestion because drivers would end up blocking the intersection both accidentally and on purpose. It could happen accidentally because they don't notice until it's already too late that they won't get fully across. It could also happen on purpose because of not wanting to wait multiple cycles than necessary. There were also comments regarding congestion on Center Street up to Allerton Road at around 3 o'clock in the afternoon, as well as comments regarding vehicles not able to get through the green right turn arrow from Walnut Street southbound onto Center Street southwestbound. During the Traffic Council hearing on November 16th, 2023, I was the only member of the public who spoke during public comment, and I wish there were more members of the neighborhood who spoke. In addition, the recommendation presented at that hearing was to deny the request for the same reason that Mr. Kozis just said so tonight. However, there was no data collected to suggest that it would be completely impactful. Also, one of the slides shown as part of the presentation during that meeting, and even this meeting, shows what the proposed change will look like with signs. In real field conditions, I would suggest placing cones or barriers to block the lane, because many cars would regularly ignore the "do not enter" signs if no physical obstruction were in place. However, it would be necessary to leave enough space to allow bicycles to pass through, while also trying to guarantee that barricades will prevent cars, buses, and trucks from getting through. I know this change will require the MBTA 59 outbound buses to reroute, but this would not cause any stops to be eliminated or relocated, because the last bus stop prior to where buses would need to reroute is at the corner of Walnut Street and Lincoln Street, and then the next stop on that bus line is on Winchester Street, just south of the new MassDOT traffic signals. I am urging the committee tonight to vote to remand this request to the Traffic Council to be able to conduct turning movement counts. I suggest the Traffic Council schedule to hear this request again in March 2024 and vote to hold for a trial when they discuss it again. I do not have any recommendations regarding the amount of time this trial should take place, but when the trial begins, I suggest placing electronic message boards on the Walnut Street Bridge over the MBTA Green Line, informing drivers that right turns are no longer allowed onto Center Street, and instead to make the next right turn onto Floral Street. I also suggest putting another electronic message board sign on Center Street facing westbound traffic near Hyde Street, informing drivers that it is no longer legal to go straight at Walnut Street. I respect any resident who lives on any quiet street very close to where this change would happen, who is strongly opposed to this because it would suddenly cause their street to have more traffic than they are used to. However, I feel very strongly that I want this change to occur because of the traffic congestion issues. Thank you very much. I'm finished.
Thank you, Mr. Corey. Appreciate that. Do we have any counselors who have comments or questions at this time? Counselor Wright.
So I did go down there today, and some of the suggestions that Mr. Corey recommended, people are doing already. So in front of me, I came down on Center Street going towards Route 9, and a few of the cars, took a left before the light, so they didn't get in the backup. And when I did go down Floral Street, there's a few people going down Floral, but I think this would be very, very disruptive. And I understand the traffic lights themselves, the timing, it takes a long time, at least it has in West Newton, about a year to get it correct. So I think it's a matter of waiting it out and hopefully setting the lights there so that traffic would flow better. Otherwise, we're going to be putting on so much more traffic on side streets. residential streets versus main travel roads. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Lucas.
Oh, thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, when I first saw this in our packet, I was a little confused because I thought it was Traffic Council that was recommending the do not enter except bicycles on Center Street. So that threw me off for a loop, but thank you to Mr. Kosis for explaining it was the petitioner who was requesting this do not enter except bicycles. I don't go through this intersection a lot, but when I do, the traffic here it's not great. And this, quite frankly, would only make it worse, in my opinion. You would put more traffic onto that off-ramp from Route 9 heading onto Center Street. And that just doesn't seem like a great idea. So I'm going to vote one way or another to not allow the do not enter except bicycles in signs there. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Bixby.
I guess I'll just echo my colleagues' comments. I think, this intersection, the lights at Route 9 have posed some, new traffic challenges. But, I don't know, Mr. Prezan, if you want to comment any more on the timeline or the fact that, it does seem like MassDOT has plans to, fix these and improve the traffic flow there. And I'm just not sure at this point, especially with the 59 bus route through there and, very few other options to get through to Winchester, to Needham Street, to Route 9, that this would be at all feasible for the neighborhood. So I don't know, Mr. Prezan, if you want to share anything about MassDOT's plan or timing.
Thank you. Mr. Prezan, did you want to comment on that?
Sure. So we have been in communication with MassDOT ever since these signals went in. They do unfortunately move a little bit slow, but the city's continuing to encourage them to progress with the plans. We were pleased with the plan revisions, at least on paper, that we have seen so far. It's just a matter of internal reviews from MassDOT to keep this moving. I don't have any anticipated timeline right now that MassDOT has shared, but from the city side, we're just going to continue to encourage them to move ahead with it. Some of the changes they have proposed, we do view as optimistic and positive changes. So we're just hoping to get there as soon as possible.
Thank you. Councillor Bixby, were you otherwise all set? Yes. Okay. Councillor Downs.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Corey is, as usual, extremely thorough, extremely detail-oriented, and quite creative in thinking about ways to solve our traffic congestion problems. I don't agree that this would be the solution, and I'm happy to hear that we have some progress between MassDOT, which controls the signals, and our own department. Been quite disappointed in how that particular part of the Needham Street improvement project has turned out, at least for local traffic, and I hope it gets resolved soon.
Thank you. Do we have any other comments from councilors? And otherwise, I'm going to turn back to members of the public. Okay, I don't see any other hands from councilors. Let me recognize, I see it on the screen as iPad 7 Angela. If I could ask you to unmute, introduce yourself and state your name and address, please.
Yes, hi, thank you. Angela Mirror. I live at 9 Forest Street, and I just wanted to talk about what others are saying about the increased traffic on side streets, because we're experiencing that on Forest. But there's one other aspect to the fact that that's happening. People are driving with frustration. So they're turning the corner. I live at 9 Forest, so it's just the second house in on Forest. And people are driving as though they're really frustrated from the traffic. The other day, I turned the corner from Walnut to Forest to go to my home, and there are cars parked on the left side. As I approached, there was a car coming towards me. So I had to stop to let the car coming towards me through. And there was a driver, a frustrated driver, turning off of Walnut onto Forest to cut through, and didn't realize what I was doing and didn't take the time to figure it out. So started blowing their horn, and then quickly went around my car and almost collided head on with the car coming forward. So it's a problem. The increased traffic is a problem, but I'm really concerned about the way people are driving because of the frustration.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
All set, or did you have anything further you wanted to share?
I just wanted to point that out. I hadn't heard anybody say anything about
it. We appreciate it.
Okay.
Mr. Corey, I see that your hand is back up. And as Councillor Downs put it, as always, as she said, very thorough, analytical, creative, and thoughtful. Please go ahead.
So I want to ask whether anyone would like be in favor of having like traffic control officers direct traffic because of these issues, and like having stopping traffic on green lights because they can't make it through the intersection, or motioning traffic to go through red lights because the key space between Walnut Street and Route 9 is all filled up.
Well, I'm happy to turn that to Mr. Kozis and Mr. Prezant. I personally suspect that anything like that would require staffing would be extremely difficult to provide, prioritize, and fund. But I'll let Mr. Kozis and Mr. Prezant comment on that.
Yeah, I would just say from DPW's perspective and from the councilor's perspective, we definitely can't commit the police's funding to this. You know, that is police details are very costly, and they're also understaffed, and there are so many needs citywide with all the construction going on that even then sometimes all the requested details cannot be filled on a day-to-day basis. So I would discourage that as a proposition to police, but ultimately that's their jurisdiction to decide.
Thank you. I don't see any other hands at this time. I will quickly say that I agree with my colleagues. This intersection has been problematic for a very long time, certainly prior to and certainly during and since the construction as well. But I appreciate our traffic professionals' continued attention to it and collaboration with MassDOT to try to continue to solve the problem. I don't see this proposal as additive, and agree with my colleagues in supporting where Traffic Council came out on this. Forgive me for forgetting your last name, Angela. If I could recognize you again, I saw that your hand was back up. Did you want to add something additional?
I'm sorry, that was an accident.
Okay, no problem. Is there a motion from a committee member on this item?
I will move to deny the appeal.
Okay, do we have any further discussion on Councillor Downs' motion? Seeing none, if I could take this on a voice vote, please. All in favor of denying the appeal, thus upholding the decision of Traffic Council, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, again, I want to thank our petitioner and appellant, as well as members of the public, for coming and participating, sharing your experiences. And please do stay in touch as time goes on with your experiences in this area, as our colleagues in the Traffic and Safety Department continue to problem solve in the area. We appreciate it. We're going to go on to our last item of the evening, which is 50-24, providing the annual report of the work of the Traffic Council for 2023. Mr. Kozis, welcome again. And thank you to you, to Mr. Prezant, and to your colleagues for everything you do on Traffic Council. We understand and appreciate that it's a tremendous amount of work and undertaking in a complicated city. And we're looking forward to hearing what you have to share tonight.
Thank you for that, Councillor Grossman. So this is the only slide for this this item. This is a summary that I give every year I don't have too much to present, but I did want to hit the highlights of what happened in 2023 at Traffic Council. So Traffic Council held 10 meetings in 2023. We handled 76 different docketed items, and you can see that we approved most of them. 84% of all the items that were docketed, we approved. We had more appeals than usual. You can see in this row that we had 4 appeals in 2023. Usually we have 0 appeals or 1 appeal a year. So this was more than I think I ever remember having. So of the 4 appeals, one of them was a stop sign at Clark and Rowena. All of these appeals come to this committee. So the stop sign at Clark and Rowena was appealed, and then this committee upheld the Traffic Council vote. There was an appeal to the parking regulations on Columbia Avenue. If some of you remember that, that was a desire to install a bike lane between Needham Street and the Countryside School. So that item, Traffic Council voted to remove parking on one side of a small block, Columbia Avenue. PS&T also upheld that Traffic Council vote. And then the 3rd and 4th appeals we just heard tonight, right? To add the parking regulations on Farwell, Traffic Council's vote was upheld, and then to not restrict parking travel on Center Street at Walnut, Traffic Council's vote was upheld by this committee. So the only other significant thing I'd like to mention this year relates to our backlog of items waiting to be heard by Traffic Council. I've been involved in Traffic Council for 20 years now, right? A long time. And this is the first time that we've ever had a really short backlog of items. There were times in the past where we had 5 or 6 months of waiting to hear an item at a Traffic Council meeting, but recently we've had no wait at all, or maybe just a month. In fact, our meeting next week, our Traffic Council meeting for February, there's only 3 items on the agenda. That's never happened before. We usually have 8 items or something like that. So I'm not sure why that's happened right now. I think we might just be in a lull, and things might pick up soon enough. But so really that's all I wanted to highlight, and I could try to answer any questions if anyone has any questions, or just listen to the discussion. Thank you. I can leave this slide up.
Sure, thank you. And so the fact that you have 3 items on your next agenda, does that mean that that's the total number of items docketed right now that are unheard? Is just those 3?
We have many, many trials that are continuing to be held for various reasons, but none of them were ready to go back onto an agenda. But everything that was ready to be heard has been heard. One new item was just docketed. I can't remember what it is right now, but it was just docketed, I think, by Councilor Downs, right? Just today. So a little bit late. So that'll be heard in the March meeting.
Speed limit on Woodward Street,
yeah,
taking it up to
like
the
Woodward,
state level.
Right.
Okay, thank you. Do we have comments, questions, or discussion by councilors? Councilor Downs.
I just wanted to commend Chair Kozis and the team. They've been working hard, and I think it shows. And also, there's just been, as Mr. Kozis said, a lot of trials. We're trying things out, seeing if they work, and then tweaking them, and that makes a huge difference, because people can get used to things, or they can come back at us and say, I know this has been going on for so many years that we've been doing this. doesn't work for me, and we can go back and adjust, and I think that's healthy. So thank you.
Thank you. I certainly echo that, and our thanks to you as well, Councillor Downs, for your work on Traffic Council and your passion for the subject matter. It's also been incredibly additive, and we really appreciate it as your colleagues. Other comments or questions from the committee? Okay, I don't see any. Is there a motion on this item? I'd probably suggest no action necessary, but we could also hold it if anybody wants to discuss this in the future.
No
I
action
would-
necessary.
Okay, motion for no action necessary by Councillor Lipoff. Is there any further discussion? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor of no action necessary, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, that concludes our work for this evening. So we are adjourned at 8:06. Thank you all very much. Enjoy the rest of your night.
You too. Thanks.
You too.